and welcome to our next panel. I'm not sure how we're going to follow that past panel because it was amazing. But now we're talking about why now. Why is EDI the topic of conversation now? My name's Kylie Kendrick. I work at Durham University and I'm the technical specialist for Esports. I do a lot for our students in terms of esports as part of the wider student experience. We don't teach esports at Durham, but we do involve it as part of their life and study at Durham. If I can pass on to my colleagues to my right.
Hello, I am Mollie. I am a content creator and an activist for inclusion and diversity within the gaming space.
Great. My name is Lavasani. I am the account manager for Tundra Esports, and I am the chair of Women in Esports.
Hi, I'm Liz Keeble. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Omnia Foundation, which is an independent special secondary school for boys who have autism spectrum disorder or social, emotional, mental health issues. So inclusion is everything that I stand for. And really pleased today to be here with you, lovely gang, to talk about an issue that's very close to my heart.
Okay, so I guess we'll get straight into it. So for a lot of people, EDI can be a topic of conversation that they just sort of halt before they even start bringing up. Purely because they might be afraid of something they might say wrong, something they might be approached for in the future, that they said, oh, you didn't quite say this correctly. Is there a need to remove this fear in order to encourage more conversations? And this can only happen through education, I would think we would all agree. Mm-hmm. So many fear saying the wrong thing about EDI, as I just mentioned. How can individuals feel more confident and empowered to discuss EDI and feel comfortable in asking important questions related to EDI?
I think it's a hard one, but I think most people know if you're talking about stuff to do with inclusion, diversity, equity, if you're saying it in good faith, mm-hmm. most people will perceive that and understand that and know. And I think everybody is very much like always learning, always building on their knowledge. And so you're going to make mistakes. You're going to changing your thoughts all the time. And so within that, as long as, again, you're acting in good faith, as long as you are always improving your knowledge and keeping your EDI knowledge intersectional, mm-hmm. people are going to know that and they're going to take what you're saying, even if you make a mistake, with a grain of salt, and hopefully be very accepting of any mistakes you make as you are learning.
I think self-education in the first instance is quite important. You need to start somewhere, and I think starting with yourself is the best place to sort of start. Would you agree that sort of talking it out with friends and family is a good idea, so before you sort of broke it into the sort of wider range of people?
Yeah, absolutely. You should always engage with your circles, and you know, the importance of asking questions is definitely the case. And like you said, good faith is so true. It's like almost like it's the tone that makes the music, right? Yeah. It is that's face to face and having this engagement and asking these questions and having the conversation, especially in person, is definitely important. I feel like when things are engaged online, a lot of things can be missed and a lot of things can be differently perceived. Whereas when we have moments like these and when we sit down and we connect, and it can be a conversational thing, and we can kind of go by there. And absolutely, like you said, you know, engaging with your friends, your peers, your inner circles first, and at least people that you can find in. And I think that's also very important, to have people that you can find in. Is just a key part of that as well, to educate yourself and to understand and learn more. It can never come from, it's not going to happen right away, but it is going to be a journey probably for everyone that would understand, or has to at least engage into the understanding of you know, topics such as equity, inclusivity and diversity.
Absolutely. Liz, do you think a lot of people might be afraid to sort of, like say, get things wrong and then have to apologise? Do you think that's a large barrier for people to try and overcome, or do you think it's something that people should just accept and, you know, try and then get on with?
I think a lot of people are embarrassed in the first instance. I think there is a lot of embarrassment around lots of issues with this in this forum, because I think certainly for men there are issues with embarrassment about talking about, you know, female health issues, hormonal issues, and I think people want to engage and people want to do the right thing. But I think without talking about it, you can't get over your embarrassment. It's kind of like a vicious circle. So you have to just dive in, I think. You have to dive in wherever that is, whether that's with your family and friends or whether it's at work. Sometimes those issues are forced, certainly for my generation, sometimes those issues are forced in the workplace because you're working in an environment that is actively promoting inclusion and equality and diversity, and that might feel alien. And there may be tensions, but I think you kind of just have to be a bit brave and think, I'm going to do this and I'm going to own the areas where I mess up. And maybe it's not about apologising, maybe it's just about giving people the heads up that you're learning. I'm learning about this. This is new to me, and I am gonna mess up at times. But that's not really my intention. You know, my intention is to learn and understand the language. You know, the language around it is quite complex. So I think we've just got to get in there and have a go.
Absolutely, you do. I think respect is a big part of this as well, and as long as people understand that you're coming from a place of respect and it's not just blind ignorance and you are willing to learn, most conversations should be absolutely perfect to have with anyone in your circle. Has anyone had any experiences with having to approach that kind of situation on the panel at all?
I think for me, just because I am a content creator, it's a very public facing job. And it is one of those things of there is that fear of messing up or saying the wrong thing or anything. For instance, I'm disabled, but I'm never going to know everybody's experience of disability. So there is a chance that even if I'm talking about disability, my language may not be as inclusive as it could be. And that's simply because I can't know everybody's experience. I can't know everybody's thoughts. And so I think it, again, is that thing, if people know, I have friends that are disabled but don't have the same disability as me, they know me, they know who I am, and they know I'm doing my best. And so ideally, it is that thing of acting on good faith. If people know you're doing the best, if they know who you are, they know you're not trying to be offensive or horrible. Ideally, if people will reach out and educate you, and you can learn from that, and you can be like, oh no, I messed up, I used the wrong language, or I thought the wrong thing, or had learned from the wrong sources, or anything like that. I think if you're able to admit that and grow from that, particularly in a public facing job, it's very much I think people are very understanding of that and of that growth, which is quite nice.
No, it is. Yeah, it's quite progressive, I think, and I also think that social media has a lot to answer for in terms of providing a platform for EDI issues and subjects and whatnot. Do you think content creators and influencers therefore have a slight duty of care to sort of promote the right information, the right feeling, the right way to what's my word? Can't get my word out. Approach these situations, I think is the word I was looking for. As they're more in the public eye than anybody else. Do you think that's probably the right thing?
Yeah, I think if you are a content creator, you have that duty to, in an ideal world, in an amazing, wonderful world, everybody would be using their platform for good, and content creators would be educating themselves on important topics to then educate their audience, particularly some content creators have millions of followers. And so I do think it should be on us to help, but obviously we are not living in an ideal world.
No, exactly. It's not a burden that everyone should carry, but perhaps share equally. I think it's probably the best term for it. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And then also, coming from experience, I'm a gay woman myself, and there was, when I came out around 18, I didn't understand, at least, that you will never stop coming out as well. And then, of course, you will have, different reactions to coming out, and there's certain types of not safeguarding, but some preventions from experiences that you have, from people's reaction to you coming out, whether it be at work or friend group, or a dynamic friend group. But it is, it is important for me to at least, to give the benefit of the doubt when people are going to ask questions. And like you said, as I said before, it is the tone that makes the music, right? So if people are asking from a genuine curiosity or at least an understanding to your, like, I don't know, lifestyle, I guess. But if that's the case, then, you know, take it as face value. But I've definitely had some moments where it went to the wrong direction, and, you know, not having to experience that first and having to learn from that too is very important. And that, I mean, it allows you to set your own boundaries too. When you have these type of conversations, you learn to at least like learn from these conversations and experiences. So it's definitely important to at least also not just, you know, I mean, we're all about educating, but it's also good to educate yourself and to handle these situations.
Absolutely. Wonderful. I think we'll move on to our next question, because I think we're progressing quite nicely here. So the next point is, why has EDI become more of a talking point in recent years? Has there any recent activities? Is there any points that anyone wants to bring up? Liz, I'm looking at you for this one.
Yeah, I think it's a really exciting time for EDI. I think I grew up in a generation where everything was binary. Everything was black and white. Yeah. And over 4-5 decades, I've seen this whole rainbow explode across the board. And I think that's really how it is. I think people are waking up to the fact that actually we are a global community. We are a big tribe. It's no good now identifying with your, I don't know, with the people that you look like, with the people that you sound like. Absolutely. It's a lot broader than that. And I think we've got to a point where we are recognising that we need to connect with each other on the things that we have in common and not the things that make us different. Yeah. And that is hard. That's not easy. It's not easy as a man to identify with a woman over the things that you know, kind of typify a woman's existence. It's not easy for black people to identify with white people, or white people to identify with black people. But that we have so much more in common than just the colour of our skin or our sexual identity. There's so much more to it than that. And I think it's scary because there is so much. But the thing that I always come back to, and certainly in my job as an educator, you know, education has been striving to be more inclusive for a long time. These are things that we've been addressing, because where children feel marginalised, it affects their life chances. And we might not think that it does, and we might think that throwaway comment that we make when they're 5 may not have impact, but it actually does. So we need to be more aware of what we say and what we do and the impact of that in the longer term, because it will, you know, we will end up with schools like ours where boys that have been excluded from everywhere, where they've not felt included or accepted or seen, even seen or heard. You know, we would like to think we could do ourselves out of a job, and make society more accepting of seeing and hearing what we're being told by the children and young people. So for me, it's really exciting. If Mother Nature thought that society would survive with everybody being the same, then we would all be the same, but we're not. And the bottom line is that we have to have a 360 view of society to survive. You know, as a species, we need that now more than ever.
Really. I love that, Liz. That line was fantastic. It just like summed up everything we were trying to talk about today. That's fantastic. Sue, I think in terms of businesses and organisations, they have a duty of care as well to recognise that EDI is very important in, you know, the diversity and recruitment process. Does your organisation have anything in place to support that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are some projects at the moment in the pipeline where I've been tasked to handle, you know, these types of subjects. Granted, I've only been at the organisation since March this year, so I've just been, but I've been, at least with my position with, you know, being at the chair of Women in Esports, and that has been notably seen from the get-go as well. They've multiple times asked for my, you know, for my help, for any anything I can get advice on, and it's actually really almost in a way honourable for me, because it finally feels like I'm able to at least dedicate some time to help and change within as well. Before Tundra, I was working at different areas within video games. I worked at an agency before, and I worked at Corsair before, and that was notably so much bigger, and it was a huge company. And one of the reasons why I like esports so much is because you're just in such a small team, and it just feels like you can get so much done within a small time frame with just a handful of people that are so driven to just like work. And that's one of the reasons why I just kind of went back into esports, because that's just the main reason therefore. So at least happy with, you know, luckily with my position with women in esports and the initiative of women in esports as well, you know, doing continuously great things to push the awareness of it, and to have, you know, conversations and topics like these come up and dissect them and talk about them is so important. So yeah, hopefully at least with my role at Tundra Esports and with the organization, I'm able to accomplish much more than I might know soon. You know, who knows? We'll see.
Yeah.
Time will only tell. There's only one way to find out. But I'm very excited. It does seem generally that the industry is shifting, and it seems like you know, people are talking way more, and it's so important to just keep having these conversations.
Absolutely. So in terms of things that are going on in the world at the moment, there are a few things that could have brought EDI to light a bit more as well. Talking about things like COVID, Black Lives Matters, Me Too. Do you think those, whilst not initiatives, those sort of worldwide experiences that have brought this to the surface a lot more, do you think that these are seen then in a more of a negative light or a positive light?
I got in terms of, have they done more good?
Yes, has the things come from it certainly?
Oh my
raise
gosh, yeah. Yeah. No, I think I mean, obviously we were all around gaming and stuff, and I think people see gaming as this very niche hobby, very niche esport, anything like that. But I think gaming reflects so much the wider world. Like, it is a huge media form that people actually interact with, and so as far as like the stuff going on in the world is so reflected in games and in the gaming community itself. And I think, like, vice versa, gaming communities and games themselves have such an effect on the wider world. And I think that is why it is such an important push to get more diverse employees, more diversity in content creation, more diversity in like the top jobs in gaming, because they have such an effect on the world around us. And I mean, you see it every day, at least I do, where a company will release like a diversity initiative, or they'll release a character that isn't like a white guy, and people go mental. Like, on the internet, like they'll be so angry on Twitter. Because they know that this is different, it's changing, it's not what I'm used to, I don't like this. And so it is such a huge thing that games can do to affect our wider world and be affected by the wider world and produce that in games.
Absolutely. So moving on to one of the questions. This is quite a personal question to each of you, so take time in replying. Have you had any experience of feeling marginalised? I think it's a moot point, but we'll ask. And how did you overcome this? And how has your experience changed in the last 5 years? I'll start with Liz.
Yeah, I think as a woman, I think I'm only just beginning to realise how marginalised I've been, because as I said, growing up in a society that really wasn't open to diversity has been a different experience. I've had direct discrimination in terms of salary, gender pay gap, but I think my tenet is always be true to yourself. You can only do you, and I think you become a role model for your minority, for want of a better word, by carrying on and being true to yourself, having authenticity, having integrity, and pushing back gently but firmly at times when you think, do you know what, I'm not going to take that. Sometimes I push gently and sometimes I push more firmly than others, and certainly over the last few years I have felt empowered by movements like Me Too.
Oh wow.
And I feel empowered by esports. I'm not a gamer. I've not had any involvement with that. Coming at it from a non-performance-based angle, I look at the esports industry and I think, wow, there's so many women. You know, it's so diverse. This is how it feels to an outsider. So I think it does change. And even at my age, I'm not averse to, you know, sitting in a room full of Netties in the background and being, you know, being the oldest. Because I think, you know, we haven't talked about age, but age is a thing as well,
yeah,
you know.
absolutely.
And I definitely don't feel marginalised because of my age in any way, shape or form. But I think that's because I have a young outlook on life and I'm open to learning and open to looking at different things. But I think, we can only do ourselves. And I think by being authentic and true to ourselves, we become role models for whatever it is that we are, in whatever milieu that we work in, whatever forum that is. And I think if we all try and do that and stick to our own lane and be role models for what we stand for, then we will see change without a shadow of a doubt.
Absolutely. Same question to you, Sue?
This is one that always comes to mind, and I've mentioned this before, but there's just one example that I can always give when I think about this is, so for context, my parents are from Iran. I was born and raised in the Netherlands. And I always had never any problem with like language and stuff. My mom, she strictly spoke Dutch at home as well to make sure that we, you know, feel, you know, within. Because I grew up in a very small town, so you have to do what you need to do as a mother, like to save, like protect your kids and stuff from, you know, comments and such. Because we had some instances where we wouldn't really felt welcome when we moved. But fast forward to when I was 16, never had any issues. I, you know, had friends like. Also, I always saw myself as Dutch. You know, I always speak very, very. When I speak Dutch, I speak very, very heavy accent as well. You can definitely hear where I'm from. But I was at a party one time, and I was speaking to some people, and at the time I had a tendency to trip over my words. I had like a little bit of a speech problem. I talked way too fast. It was like my brain was moving faster than my mouth. Like it's just like tripping over your words.
Yeah.
So I noticed this was happening. So I was talking to this guy, and I corrected myself, and I said to him, "I'm so sorry. Like, you know, that sometimes happens. You know." And he's like, "Oh yeah, Dutch is a very hard language to learn." And I'm like, and I was, and at that moment, I was just like, I was just dumbfounded. I didn't even know how to react, because like that's kind of like almost. When I realized, like, I always see myself as Dutch, you know, I've always seen myself as just like being part of that country and being part of that. But I just realized, like, he doesn't see that way. There might other people that wouldn't see that way. It was this rude awakening that I had to go through. In a way, it just kind of, I always felt accepted, but at that moment, it just took me back.
Yes, yeah, a little bit
so.
surprising.
At the time, like, I've become way more assertive, of course, to, like you said, push back, like, you know, with firmly, you know, in that as you do. But I'll definitely learn from that moment. That's just always just one of the things that stood out to me. That's just this, like, you know, I don't know. I was just so held back from that comment. So definitely not the case anymore. You know, I always feel very welcome wherever I am, and. If that is not the case, I've learned to be way more assertive and speak up as well. I mean, you know, as you grow older, you don't really tend to think too much about anything, really. No. You tend to move, which is very, very, I don't know, like relieving.
It is. It's quite liberating.
Very liberating.
Yeah.
So, in that would be my example.
Thank you. Are you Mollie?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I'm obviously, like, I come from the perspective of like a disabled woman, but I'm very well aware that I am white, I'm middle class, so like my like experience of marginalization is going to be so differently to like a black disabled woman or anything like that, or a gay disabled woman. But in terms of, has it lessened over 5 years? No, it has not.
Oh no.
I think disability is something very much, I mean, making fun of disability is something very much ingrained in our media, in films, in TV, in games, everything like that. And I think games at the moment is having a very big push for accessibility and including accessibility options. But as far as including actually disabled people, it's just not happening. And so, again, like putting marginalized people in your games or in your workforce is a way of pushing back on that marginalization. But if people can't see that, then it's just not going to happen. There is no pushback. And like, there's only so much a marginalized group of people can yell about it to people that just do not care. And so it is. I mean, like, it's very commonplace when you're playing like an online game to hear like slurs and stuff about disabled people thrown around, which is it's a good time. I love it. So it's just like one of those things where I don't think it's changed, but I think with accessibility being such a big thing in gaming, ideally from there, disabled people should be part of the inclusion, and so I'm staying optimistic about it.
That's good.
That's we'll get there.
I think it's a lot to do with sort of allyship as well. We need allies in the industry and you know, people around us to support us a little bit more. And I think once that becomes the norm, inclusion will be the norm as well. I think that's the most positive thing we can take from the current situation. Okay, I think we might nearly be out of time. Do we have any questions? No, we are good. Okay then, I would love to say thank you to everyone. It's been a pleasure. You've made me feel very at ease, and I hope everyone at home found it enjoyable as well. Thank you.
Thank you.